The School of Fiction.
Hi, I'm Aspry Jones, and you are watching the School of Fiction channel.
Hi, Aspry, this is Matt, and I want to welcome you so much. And it turns out, as I was looking at your background, that we have a lot more things in common. I seem to have things in common with a lot of people, sort of by accident.
You
I've,
mean aside from the hair?
yeah, aside from the accent. Yeah. The first thing is your background is New York television and broadcasting, and
Yes.
my similarity is that I'm a New Yorker. So I
All
want
right.
you to talk about that, and I'm going to bring up a couple of other things I think we have in common. So tell us about your TV career here in New York.
Oh, well, I'm in North Carolina now.
Mhm.
I was in New York City for about 18 years. I started out my career at the Atlanta Olympic Games, and I parlayed that over to New York City at CNN, and I was at CNN for 8 years. I started out as a uh, tech operations guy and made my way up to the chief supervisor for the morning shift. And I was there for 9/11. I was there for countless uh, political debates. I was there for Larry King. It was a whole thing. And after that, we had a very unfortunate run of layoffs. It wasn't very well publicized, but it was a nightmare of a thing. And a lot of us ended up freelancing around New York City. And I freelanced at Fox News, MSNBC, different places until New York basically dried up for me. And I packed up my things and head down south. And I
Uh,
don't regret it.
and that's our second point of connection. Is although I don't currently, I used to own property in Charlotte, North Carolina. So
All right.
my parents are currently in Raleigh. So, and I spent some years living there. So you and I also have North Carolina in common. And
All right.
this sort of thing just keeps happening to me when I'm interviewing authors. There's another thing one more thing I wanted to ask about in your bio. You talked about
Yeah.
esoteric spiritual practices, and that is fascinating to me. So
Okay.
let me ask you, tell me a little about that.
All right. Well, basically, I guess what you could call me at this point in my life as an esoteric Christian. Um, I didn't know that I was that sort of a Christian. I had no idea there was a name for me until I saw it on the internet one day. And basically, what we're talking about is I do heavy research and study to find the hidden meanings in ancient spiritual texts, whether it's the Bible or the Tao Te Ching or the Quran, Vedas, Upanishads. I don't think I don't go through life saying that you can put a puzzle together with just one piece. So I try to open myself up and embrace the full spectrum. And as far as my Christianity goes, I tell myself that that's what Jesus would do. Jesus said, "Love everyone, love each other. Everyone will know that you are my followers if you love each other." And opening my heart to everyone and everything completely changed my life, and I wouldn't go back for all the money in the world.
Very inspirational. Let me put up onto the screen a look at this is your media sheet, and so this has I'll put a better book cover into the video later. But your
Okay.
book is Protectors of the Light Crown.
Yes.
And so let's start talking about this. And I have a couple of specific questions about it, but just give us the general view about Protectors of the Light Crown, the overview, because I really liked what I read about it. Let's start there.
Well, fantasy books are basically, I don't want to give a broad generalization, but they're basically all the same. A group of outcast heroes get together and they try to kill the devil. Mine is no different. However, uh, the ancient so-called devil, the antagonist of my story, is he surfs the multiverse, and the heroes in the story, one of the heroes, his name is Dexter, and he can travel through different realities and so forth. And the bad guy ends up in their timeline, and he is trying to fix a grave error that he inflicted upon himself by accident. And, when you're an antagonist and you are a desperate antagonist, that means you'll basically do anything and you'll run through anyone that gets in your way to achieve your goal. And the story is about those heroes stopping him from basically ruining the place. And it was a lot of fun writing that story. It was a lot of fun writing those heroes, writing for those heroes, those characters, and that antagonist. Man, he was a blast. I wish that I thought to myself that I would love to do the audio book because I've got his voice in my head. I got a whole thing going on. He was a lot of fun to write.
So here's
Him on the cover.
blurb. Yeah, narcoleptic video game tester Dexter Park lived a mundane existence before catching the woman from a previous night's dream raiding his kitchen cabinets. Well, as you know, Tickle is no ordinary intruder. She hails from an alternate universe where the rules of reality are as fluid as water. And she has come into his life not by chance, but by design. So they find themselves locked in battle with a giant reptile called Venomous Wretch, right?
No,
Yeah.
the reptile is a different.
Oh,
That's
oh,
explained later on in the story. The venomous wretch
yeah.
is the former king that transformed himself into a monster by accident.
All right. And they're joining a fledgling team of heroes pledged to take down a supernatural threat from their ancient past.
There you go. That's him.
There we go. And yeah, I like this very much. I like multiversal stories. I did
Ah,
even before Marvel sort of stepped into them. And
okay.
so I like that very much. And the interesting connection here is dreams. So lucid dreaming is one of the things that you mentioned as of particular interest when thinking about this book. And I actually experimented with lucid dreaming when I was in college myself,
Hmm.
although not successfully. We had a family friend at the time who had written a book about lucid dreaming that I tried to use. So tell us a little bit about lucid dreaming in general, and then how it ties into your book.
The difference in my understanding, as far as regular dreaming and lucid dreaming goes, is that you know that you're dreaming, and you basically take over and just start dominating. And I haven't done such a thing in many years. But there was a point where I could do it on a whim in my dreams. And I have told myself, and different scientists who can't answer the question have led me to believe that the entire concept of dreaming in general is, uh, theoretically, of course, um, going through different realities and being able to put them together, cherry pick different parts of realities to make your own story. That's the way I always saw it. And nothing has changed my mind yet. And I think the entire concept behind lucid dreaming was able to power my book. And Dexter's narcolepsy, whenever he goes to sleep, he ends up in a different universe. And that's the crux of the story in the first 5 chapters, where I lay that foundation between him and his story and the King story. And after that, at chapter 6, it's off to the races.
Are these universes very dramatically different, or they have little slight changes, or both? Or
I go out of my way to come up with ideas that are uh, completely insane, but also I try to keep some things very familiar too, where there are universes where there are just very slight things happening. Um, if you take the butterfly effect into account, the butterfly effect meaning that the very slightest thing to happen in this universe can set things off toward very extreme circumstances, very extreme changes and differences. And meaning, of course, the butterfly effect, it is called that because it said that the beating of a butterfly's wings can eventually lead to like a tornado down the road.
well,
So,
you take us back to the great Ray Bradbury, an influence on most of us writers of a certain age, and The Sound of Thunder, where he talks about that very precisely. So,
ah,
thumbs up on Ray Bradbury. So we had a couple of other topics that we were going to cover here, and I think a good starting place is your use of handwritten drafts. You said that's something that in particular you want to tell us about.
Yeah. Handwriting, I can be about as old school as it gets. So, handwriting actually started, it took me 10 years to write this book. It didn't have to. I came on and I came off for different reasons. And it started out that I was handwriting. I have a stack of notebooks like this, all protectors of the lifetime. And I started it out because I woke up one night and my laptop was on the floor and it was open. And I got up to go to the bathroom and I stepped on the screen and I broke the laptop. So when I got it into my head to start writing a book, I had to go to CVS and pick up a pen and a few notepads because I no longer had a laptop. So that's how it started out, and it was a it was very familiar. It's what I knew how to do. I didn't regret it. It felt good actually, um, but I think the problem was, and I learned this later on. The problem was that when it came down to getting it onto the screen when I got a new laptop eventually, uh, I didn't know that there was like a dictation feature on Microsoft Word. So I sat there typing away every little word from my notebook to the screen. And boy, what a tedious process that is. I will never do that again. I look forward to starting book two with a notebook and a pen. However, and I've done the outline exactly like that. However, now that I've discovered the dictation process, a microphone is in the mail, and I'm looking forward to doing that because boy oh boy, I'll never do it the old way again.
Let me talk because I also do handwritten drafts.
Mm.
My process is different from yours. I
Okay.
discovered that feature of Word even more recently than you did. But what I always do is I write it handwritten in a notebook and generally mixed random notebooks because of having to write while I'm at jobs and so on and so on. And then the material winds up scrambled and I type it up into a word processor. So for me, that leads to a lot of kind of revising as I go. So
Mm.
typing it up is the second draft,
Mhm.
but also I have scattered fragments, and when I assemble them, then there's other stuff I have to figure out. Which notebook is that in? So are you very linear within these notebooks, or are you also jumping around?
I'm pretty linear. I like to keep things very orderly. I'm very much an organization person, an organized person. I, uh, I want B to come after A, and I don't jump to D without going to C next. You know, that's my modus operandi.
In writing or pretty much in everything?
Pretty much everything. That's how my brain works. That's how my
Uh,
brain works, especially now. I've been meditating twice a day for a few years now, and I'm pretty very much. I'm kind of an advanced meditator, and my brain works like that now more than it ever did. It is very much rewired for that to that capacity.
mhm. Now, based on this, the question that I talk to every author about is plotter versus pantser. So I
I
think
knew
I
that was
know where
coming
you're going with that one. Tell
in.
us. Tell us
That
anyway.
was a good segue. That was a good segue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very much a plotter. The whole Panther thing. I might be wrong about this, but I think that's a Stephen King method. And when I read his book, I was immediately turned off by his style. I was saying to myself, I was like, "Well, I can't do any of this." He just says, "Sit down and write." There's no way. There's no way. I don't even want to do it that way. I want to sit down with note cards. I want to outline my characters' histories, their parents' histories, their grandparents' histories, everything that motivates this person into doing what they're doing in my story, and it's got to be bullet pointed, um, and A B C D F, you know, E F G. I have to do it like that in a straight line down so that I know exactly what I'm dealing with and who I'm dealing with and why. So I have to do the plotter thing. Uh, it actually it's soothing to me to do it that way. I would be a chaotic mess if I did. and so would my story.
No. So you did a tremendous amount of that sort of work before you wrote chapter one?
I did. I did. That's the way I create my characters. Um, I feel as if that we are I'm 52 years of everything I've ever said, thought, and done, and that I am a product of my experiences, and I think that we all are that way if we allow it. You can be whoever you want yourself to be. I truly believe that. But I think initially we are victims of our experiences shaping us into who we are. So I went that way with my characters. I started all the way back. I created very generic grandparents. And I said, what kind of people? And I gave them very generic personalities and backgrounds. And I said, what kind of people would raise my character's parents? And I went down to the parents, and the way they were raised, they were certain people, and then they had my character, my main character, and raised that person into whoever he grew up to be. And it turned out that when I had outlined my story and I planned things for this particular character, it turned out that the person I had developed him into being wouldn't make the decisions I had in my story. I had planned. He's a completely different person that I planned, and I had to change my story because my character changed. And that was a eureka moment. That was a fantastic experience finding that out. I would never have figured that out if I did not take my plotter method to the very extreme.
It is of the people that I've interviewed, you are the most dedicated to the plotter strategy so far.
I'll
So
take that as a
far.
compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, I when I started out, as a teenager, I was doing these detailed character backgrounds, and I even typed conversations between myself and my characters.
Mm.
Unfortunately, those documents were all lost because of loss of 5¼ inch discs, if you can believe that.
Oh, I remember those.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wish I could hold one up right now and say, but this one still works, but no, that's not the case. And as time went on, I started to do a little bit less of that. So, as a person who is very into this, let's say that you want to recommend it to a young writer or a
Mm.
beginning writer. I'm
Mhm.
going to ask again so I can trim that. Right. Okay. If you are giving advice to a new writer, young or intermediate, about how to be good at being a plotter, how to use the plotter strategy, what would be some advice you would give to that writer?
The advice I would give has been given a million times over. Write what you know. Now, I don't purport to say that I am a narcoleptic video game tester and I've written what I know in that vein. No, I came up with that. I created that, and it was all imagination. And but there are definitely little pieces of me in Dexter. There are little pieces of me in Tickle. There are pieces of me in Oath, the different characters on the team called the Protectors who try to stop the bad guy. And I'd hate to say it, but maybe there's even a little bit of me in the bad guy too, in the antagonist, the venomous wretch. And I think that when you are writing what you know, you are being genuine. And if I were to try to write a story about a woman from a female perspective, that wouldn't be the least bit genuine, I don't think. I don't know what it's like to be a female. I don't know what it's like to have the women's plight. And to write something about that would totally come off as fake. So instead, what do? I write for characters. I don't write for a black person. I don't write for a Mexican, a white person, a rich person, a poor person. I write for characters who just happen to be white, black, religious, political, whatever. They just have what they are what their experiences made them into being, and that doesn't have anything to do with gender or sexual preference or lifestyle, things of that nature. I think you are genuine when you are writing about a person's personality and how that personality jumps onto the page. And the entire idea of being a man, from my perspective anyway, I'm not, there are people who have probably done this very well, and I've seen it done. I'm just saying that there's under no circumstances am I going down that route. I'm going down a route where you write what you know, you create a character who just maybe happens to be a woman, and that's not what the story is about. That's what I would tell them.
Our characters have to represent themselves. They can't represent their ethnic identity or their gender or their sexual orientation,
There
right?
you go. Yeah,
They're people.
yeah.
And yes, sure, their behavior is influenced by all those things, but they aren't representatives of it.
Right.
I've written a lot of female characters, a lot of female leads. I was under a pseudonym, a romance writer for a period of time, and I was writing mainly with a partner, and so my partner assigned me whichever character was from New York, whether
Okay.
it was the male or the female lead. So I wrote a number of New York women, and it's fine because they're, aside from their being in love with the male, they had their own stuff going on in their stories.
Yeah.
It makes
And
sense.
you wrote what you knew.
Right, exactly. To write what you know, I think this is often interpreted differently than you and I interpret it. People
Mm,
that write what you know means that you must write within your own direct life experience.
mm.
And of course, that doesn't work for people who are writing science fiction fantasy like you do, and also done a lot of. It means write what you know to be authentic to human nature and authentic to just what feels truthful about the world. So write what you know is write what you know from your heart to be accurate for depicting how life is.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
That's the way I'm going to put it. And since we're doing segues, let's segue to quantum physics because that is also about how the world is. And quantum physics is very important to you as a person and as a writer. So tell me about that. How does that?
Quantum physics, that came out of nowhere. During COVID,
Mhm.
I was, and I don't feel bad about this, but I did at the time. When everybody was in pain and, and having a bad time with COVID, I was actually doing really well for myself. I bought a new house, and I was a very introverted person at the time. So hermitizing myself, just staying home and staying healthy and away from the sick, worked out for me because I had become a sponge for learning. And during that time, I was writing feverishly. I was going bananas. And a little bit before that, I had stopped to handle life. I wasn't writing my book at all. Life got in the way. Things were happening, and when I got back to the book, I looked at it again to pick up where I left off, and I noticed that my science was laughable. It was ridiculous. In my sci-fi book, I was very disingenuous, and I wasn't, accurately getting time travel across, different aspects, the multiverse realities. And I said to myself, all right, I need to take more time off from this book, and I'm going to study quantum physics for a couple of years. So I took time off from the book to study quantum physics. And when I came back to the book, not only did my science vastly improve, but also my way of looking at life in different directions. And now I take my spirituality very seriously. I take my faith very seriously. And now I weigh science just as heavily as the rest because what it came to me was that, if you're talking about religion, if you're talking about your lifestyle, if you're talking about, this, that, and the other thing, I came to the idea that everybody's saying the same thing using different words. And that concept powered me toward, uh, being able to get my story across in a much stronger vein because I had different avenues to approach now. I all saw it as the same. I saw it all as the same thing, but I was able to attack it from different directions, and that was a eureka moment too. I felt unstoppable after that.
Our final topic that I want to talk to you about is self-publishing.
Mm.
I've been talking to a lot of people about this, and I know you have some general thoughts and advice for people about self-publishing, maybe some warnings. And while I think you've done it a little more recently than I have. So let's share what you want to share with people who are either struggling with it currently or considering how to approach it.
Well, if you're anything like me, and you wrote your book, and you go to get it formatted with Amazon or Ingram Spark, and you have no idea what you're doing, and you completely botch it, and it's not going your way, and you say to yourself, "Okay, fine, I'm going to hire somebody to do this for me." Um, Boy, is that a crapshoot! Boy, is that a crapshoot! I did some vetting for a publicist that would do that for me, and I thought I chose well, and I chose poorly. And hiring a publicist to handle my edited manuscript um, for promotion and the formatting and all that sort of thing and the publishing and all that. Um, that was a comedy of errors. It was a terrible experience, absolutely terrible. And there was no way that I could have I think that I could have done better as without shelling out multiple thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Um, I thought I'd vetted well, and I thought I'd gone the right route. Man, oh man, oh man! It was a terrible experience, and I would like to give somebody advice on how to do better next time, but I really can't. I think that it really is a crapshoot. You might think that you're making a great choice, and it could blow up in your face. Now, I ended up finding a woman named Michelle Hill from her company named Winning Proof, and she has been knocking it out of the park after I fired the other guys, and she's been killing it. So the way I look at life, I say to myself, there's no such thing as a free lunch. And in order to find her, I had to endure the horrors of the previous guys. So that's the way I look at it.
There are a lot of people out there, a lot of people out there trying to scam aspirational authors and claiming that they have a lot of skills that they don't really have.
Yeah.
Yes, it is necessary to be very, very careful. You could do things like seeing samples. Show me some books that you published. Where are they for sale on Amazon, for example? Or
Right.
send your format these 10 pages for me so I can see how it would look. Stuff like
Mhm.
that you could do. And also, I would recommend not putting down the full money before the work is done. But the best thing ultimately is to find someone who has a well-formatted book and say, "Who did that for you?" and then hire that person. So that's the best way around it. And this is one of the reasons that we authors need to network with one another and help each other out.
That's advice that I will take for book two.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Aspry, it's been a real pleasure to meet and to talk. And I think we have more conversation in us. So I'm going to hope that we talk as you're approaching the release of your next book. And also, do you have a website or something else that we can plug here?
My website at the present is aspryjones.com, ASPRY JONES, just like the book says. I wouldn't pay much attention to it right now because there are lots of mistakes that I'm trying to fix that the publicist that created the website. I'm fixing a lot of problems. And if you want to check me out on social media, I am at Aspry Writes, ASPRY Writes. And there, hey, look at that. International Impact Awards winner. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. Oh, where is that? I'm not seeing it on my screen here. Is that on your Instagram or?
That was on the website that you had up.
Oh, okay. Oh, International Impact Awards winner. Okay.
Yeah.
What does that mean? International impact? Just just a way of saying that it's really good, which I'm sure I know it to be.
Well, International Impact is the organization behind the awards and the awards ceremony in Phoenix, Arizona, and they picked my book as best fantasy adventure novel.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Right. I did just have your other social media up here. So we have Aspry Writes for Instagram, and you have a
Yep.
YouTube channel, which is also Aspry Writes.
I'm Aspry Writes all across the board.
All right.
If it's not Aspry Writes, it's not me.
This is wonderful. Again, it's been a pleasure to meet you.
Thank
And,
you, man.
thank you so much for coming on, and we'll look to have you again.
The pleasure was mine. I do appreciate you.